Where the fuck is Oscar?
2 years has passed since the most realistic game ever has been revealed, and since then, it seems things have been moving up quite rapidly with the developers and this extremely ambitious project. The silence is on purpose because they've been creating what might be the most immersive experience ever seen in video games. Yeah, maybe even more so than IL, the photorealistic brutal FPS game from Team Cloud. This is what the gaming industry is all about, pushing the boundaries and the evolution of games, and today the team came back from the dead to announce some major news and more details about the game. We have to support games and devs like these, so drop a like on the video so everyone sees this, and let's start. Unrecord just had its most important moment since the original reveal, and it has nothing to do with another clip or another visual comparison. The big news is that Tencent has made a minority investment in Drama Studios, the team behind Unrecord. That's a massive company stepping in, and according to the developers themselves, it gives them exactly what they've been lacking until now: time, stability, and freedom. In their own words, this allows them to build the game we actually want to make without cutting corners or reshaping the project to survive. They've also said this support lets them fully commit to what they believe could become one of the most immersive games ever made, rather than a compromised version rushed out too early. What's important here is what this investment isn't. Tencent isn't taking creative control, and the team has been very clear about that. They remain independent, and the vision for Unrecord hasn't changed. If anything, it's been reinforced. The goal is still a single-player, narrative-driven experience that puts immersion and authenticity above everything else. The difference now is that they can take the time to execute that vision properly. With that context, the recent updates and developer communication land very differently. Unrecord is no longer just a visually striking prototype or a concept that went viral. It's a project that's deep into production with its foundations clearly defined. One of the most significant clarifications is scope. Unrecord is a full-length, story-driven single-player game, not a collection of short scenarios, not a tech demo padded into a release, and not a multiplayer sandbox. The developers have talked about a structured narrative with escalating stakes, where cases evolve over time instead of resetting. Decisions carry forward, situations change, and the world responds in ways that aren't always clean or satisfying. They've described the experience as deliberately slow and grounded. You're not pushed from objective marker to objective marker. Instead, the game expects you to read environments carefully. Rooms tell stories through layout, damage, lighting, and sound. The Bodycam perspective plays a big role here, not as a visual hook, but as a design constraint. Your field of view is limited. You miss things if you rush. You second guess what you saw out of the corner of your eye. That tension is intentional. Another area that's becoming clearer is how Unrecord handles player choice. Combat exists, but it's not the default solution to every situation. The developers have mentioned scenarios where restraint, patience, or de-escalation are viable paths forward. Some encounters can end without shots fired, and sometimes the smartest move is simply backing off. That's a design philosophy that runs counter to most shooters, especially ones that look this intense on the surface. Mechanically, the team continues to refine the feel of moment-to-moment play. They've talked about ongoing work on animation timing, camera response, and physicality. The Bodycam reacts to stress, sudden movement, and impacts in ways that affect how aiming and movement feel. It's not about smoothness, it's about instability. That instability feeds directly into tension, especially in tight interior spaces. Sound design is another pillar that's getting more emphasis. Unrecord relies heavily on audio cues instead of traditional EOD elements. Distant voices, movement behind walls, echoes in hallways, and environmental noise all provide information. The developers have said they want players to rely on instinct and observation, not UI prompts. That choice reinforces immersion, but it also raises the skill ceiling, because you're forced to pay attention at all times. Narratively, Unrecord is aiming for something restrained and uncomfortable rather than explosive or sensational. The team has described the tone as grounded and contemporary, focused on morally complex situations rather than clear-cut heroism. You're not playing an unstoppable action figure, you're operating operating within systems that are flawed, tense, and often ambiguous. Success isn't always clean, and failure isn't always dramatic. What stands out in recent communication is how intentionally the team is holding things back. They've openly said they don't want to show every mechanic or system before release, not because they don't exist, but because they want discovery to happen in-game. They've pointed out how quickly ideas spread and get replicated once they're public, and how that can dilute the impact of a first playthrough. For a game that relies so heavily on immersion and surprise, that restraint makes sense. The Tencent investment ties directly into this approach. It gives drama studios the runway to stay quiet, refine systems internally, and avoid reshaping the project around trends or outside expectations. That's especially important for a game like Unrecord, where pacing, cohesion, and atmosphere matter more than sheer content volume. Another subtle but important distinction is how Unrecord positions itself among other ultra-realistic shooters. The developers have been clear that realism isn't the goal on its own, it's a tool. The bodycam perspective, the limited information, the weighty movement, all of it exists to support tension and vulnerability, not spectacle. The game isn't trying to overwhelm you with features, it's trying to make every interaction feel consequential. Taken together, the newer details don't radically redefine Unrecord. They turn what once felt like an experiment into a clearly defined project with a strong internal logic. Fewer systems, but deeper ones. Fewer encounters, but more meaningful ones. Right now, Unrecord feels like it's entering a different phase, not just the cool realistic bodycam game, but a carefully constructed single-player experience that's being given the time and resources. To reach its full potential, the developers have said they're focused on making something cohesive and lasting, not something designed to spike attention for a few weeks. If they can maintain this focus through the rest of development, Unrecord has a real chance to stand out, not because it looks real, but because it plays with restraint, confidence, and intent. With the recent investment, clearer communication, and a more defined vision than ever, this is the first time it genuinely feels like Unrecord has everything it needs to become the game it's aiming to be. And that's really where the excitement should come from, not from hype cycles or constant trailers, but from the confidence the team is showing in what they're building. Drama studios being this selective with what they share isn't accidental, and it's not a marketing trick. They've said outright that a big part of Unrecord's impact relies on discovery, on walking into situations without already knowing how they're supposed to play out. For a game built around tension, uncertainty, and immersion, overexposure would actively hurt it. Being secretive also protects the design itself. Unrecord isn't chasing established shooter formulas, and it isn't trying to compete feature for feature with blockbuster FPS games.